So this week we are kicking things off with a new moon in Gemini. So new moons are always a great time. I love new moons because they are an opportunity to really, start fresh. What you want to do during the new moon is always kind of, how they say, set your intentions. You're setting the tone basically for how you want the next couple of weeks to go leading up into the full moon. And the full moon is always where we basically reap what we sow. So the new moon is all about freshness, newness. Being that this is a new moon in Gemini, this is all to do with your mentality, right? How you think about things, what you're thinking about, the things that you allow in your space as far as your mind, and kind of taking back control over those things and deciding for yourself, first of all, on one part, it's how you think, and the other part is also how you choose to communicate and engage with the world through your mental. So the Gemini energy deals with the third house. It deals with thinking, communicating, like I just said, analyzation, information in general. And, at this time in the information age is so much new information that's being dumped onto you. Some of it is beneficial, some of it is not. And really it's a testament to you really have to stand up and decide and be discerning about what you're going to allow yourself to feed on and what you're gonna just kind of allow to kind of sit on the side, especially with Saturn. Today, actually, Saturn just went into Aries. So this is really a time where you have to be aware of the shifts, both the ones internally that you've made leading up into this point, and then also, like I said before, deciding where you want to go and be discerning on what's going to get you there versus what's going to keep you distracted and maybe wasting time, which is something you probably don't want to do for another X amount of years. What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Dave B. You're watching Dave Beyond TV, where we go beyond that everyday bullshit that people be consuming on a day-to-day basis. And we're looking at the week ahead. So how I want to do this is we're going to start off looking at where the planets are currently. So right now we're dealing with the moon in Taurus, basically finishing things up. By tomorrow, it will be fully into Gemini, and then we will be experiencing the new moon probably later in the evening, right? Real late at night. So what's going on? Like, I'm recording this on Sunday. So this Sunday is very much about grounding. Saturn just went into Aries. We are fully in the Gemini energy, and you might have noticed things kind of speeding up in a little way. What I'm saying? It might not be full on sprint, but for sure a speeding up of time. And you really need to allow yourself to be quick on your feet. What I'm saying? It's time to kind of wake it up. And I mean that in multiple different ways. Wake it up in terms of allowing yourself to be more active, but also waking up your mind, allowing yourself to pay attention to more things at a faster rate. What I'm saying? Right now, it's a really good time to get in the mix. Now, everybody's in a different space in their life, but if right now, I recommend everybody to, whatever it is that you're trying to manifest for yourself, it's best to get in the mix, the best way you know how. And when I say get in the mix, I mean start to participate, engage, and communicate with people, places, and things that are related or relative to the things that you want to do. Life is very much about decisions. So we all have to continuously figure out, okay, what decisions are going to get me closer to my goals, and what decisions am I making that are kind of taking me either on an alternate route or throwing me off a little bit. And that decision is different for everybody. Saying your parents are going to have an opinion or perspective on what they think you should do. Your friends, your family, even your partner, your spouse or something like that. They might have an opinion. Everyone's going to have an opinion on what it is you're doing, but only you truly know what's right for you. And see, here's the thing, right? To avoid unnecessary conflict, because conflict is inevitable, but to avoid unnecessary conflict, the best thing you can do is communicate. And part of communication is knowing when to engage in something that, it's like, I seen a post that was like, just because we're in a disagreement doesn't mean we're arguing. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like that, where you're not necessarily trying to be confrontational, but you're damn sure not being avoidant. So again, when some of these opinions that other people may have over the things that you are engaging with, that you are deciding for yourself, when I say avoiding unnecessary conflict is you know, basically, I would say forms of not having the conversation. Sometimes having the conversation might seem confrontational from the person who probably just wants to do what they want to do. But, one thing about it is, everyone has a different way of approaching life. Some people decide to just do, act now, ask for forgiveness later. Right. But I think the reality is, there are some people in situations where, like I explained before, right? If you are younger and you are being taken yeah, you're being cared. I don't even know how to how to phrase that. You have parents that are still your guardians or providers, right? You don't fully provide for yourself, so you rely on your parents for certain things. Or let's say you are in a partnership, right, and you have a spouse that y'all trying to figure out life together, or situations like that where your decisions affect others. It's unwise to kind of be on some, man, fuck what everybody say, I'm gonna just do me shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it, I get the vibe, but you know, again, to avoid unnecessary conflict, sometimes it's best to confront those things with a conversation. I think that in Gemini season, especially, a lot of things can be avoided if we just take the time to have the discussion, engage in communication. You might be surprised at the response you get. Sometimes we assume that people are going to shoot us down. Maybe that's the experience. Maybe already ahead of time that what you present to a person, they're not really going to be receptive to it. And in that case, again, discernment. It's okay to decide to just do what you want to do. But again, this is just kind of it's so many different people that might watch this in different various situations. So I'm just trying to provide multiple avenues that we can navigate life and things like that, and not get, pigeonholed to making anybody think that there's only one way to do this. There's some people who know, what, they might not always see eye to eye with me, but the conversation might be worth it, because again, you never know, even if they disagree with your approach, right? One, it is still your life at the end of the day. So no one can take that from you. People going to do what they're going to do. So that includes you, you know what I'm saying? So you well within your right to do what you're going to do. Two, though, even if someone disagrees with you, and I think this is a part of maturity, which is very important, understanding that, getting a alternate or a different perspective on what you are deciding to do for yourself, sometimes that's beneficial. Sometimes somebody's I always make jokes about 2 cents and how it's not, to keep your 2 cents if you're not going to truly invest into what I'm saying. And what I mean by that is, like, sometimes people have a 2 cent response to something you're truly passionate or connected about, which isn't really worth much, right? But when you get people who are close to you, when they pay your thoughts and ideas mind, that it's more of an investment. People who care about the outcome or care about you are more likely to advise you with more. They're likely to give you more. Like I refer to it as an investment. Invest more into what you're saying to give you a more valuable response and criticism, right? That's actually can be constructive in some kind of way, rather than someone who really doesn't care unless it benefits them. And then in that case, a lot of times people will give you 2 cents and then kind of use that 2 cents and dangle it over your head as if it means something, right? But that's more of a tangent. But my point is, like, the conversation you might be scared to have about something that you want to do or something that you feel as though you want to explore. The conversation that comes from that might actually lead you to have better ideas on the approach, right? So they might not agree with your way of going about something or what you're choosing to go about, but sometimes it's worth just hearing someone out. And see, part of that is understanding really the essence of Gemini. And Gemini it's an air sign. It's a mutable air sign. And one thing I love about Gemini is that they don't take everything so heavily. You know what I'm saying? Like, Geminis know how to gain information, right? Receive information, but not take everything to heart. And this is kind of a lesson that we can carry on into Gemini season and also into the new moon, to understand how we might need to approach this time, in our life. So it's more about, it's less about trying to be right, more about allowing yourself to basically, it's like spreading your idea out so that you can get the feedback. I think that with Mercury, one of the most beneficial thing to do during heavy Mercury transits, like when we're going through both Virgo and Gemini, is to it's like collecting data, right? Gemini is the external form of Mercury, which is the communicator. So this is the sharing of ideas, right? If you wanted to relate it to social media content creation, or maybe you are a musician, or maybe you have a regular day job as an accountant, right? There's inputs and outputs, right? So Gemini being the yang version, the external version of this energy, this is all your input. Now, input is important because of the output you get. What happens is, especially let's say you have a lot of water or fire in your chart. So when you put things out, you might do it with so much passion or so much feeling and connection to what you're putting out, that you take things personally when you get criticism. You take it personally when someone disagrees with your viewpoint or your perspective. And so the issue that can come up is that in taking it personal, you forget that, there's very valuable information that's also exchanged on the output. The output is actually not for you to take personal, but for you to also analyze, right? And this is where we get into the internal side of Mercury, which is Virgo. The input is meant to get the information in, but the output is meant for you to take it and allow yourself to structure and adjust to then come back around for a more effective input again when you get a chance to put more work in. And what people don't understand a lot of times is that, people they'll live their whole life scared to put any input in. I know these words, say put any, they'll be scared to ever express themselves or put themselves out there, right? Again, the perfect example is a content creator. Say you want to be a content creator, or you're an artist and you've been doing this, right? Don't be afraid to put things out there, right? Put things, I must keep using input, not to confuse people. It's so, you want to put as much input as you can. So as you create things, you want to share them with the world so that, based upon the feedback loop, what the data is. What do people like? What do people not like? And again, it's not about taking things so personal when people don't like what you express or what you put out, or, what you do as an input. It's not about taking that so personal. It's about learning from it, right? Learning from it so that we can make adjustments to make things more effective on the next go round, right? Feedback loops. So in the context of a content creator, these social media analytics, when you put a post out, right, and you might get frustrated because your post doesn't get a lot of people don't like it, or, it doesn't get a lot of engagement. Biggest mistake you can do is ignore the data. You know what I'm saying? And choose to keep on doing the same thing over and over again that is proven to not be effective, when you could have, made a bunch of posts, and from, you actually look at the data and you start to make calculations on what's working, what's not working. And then instead of, again, being stubborn and kind of in your own way, you can take that information and utilize it to come up with a better execution of your ideas. And now what happens is this is how you actually become a better creator, or a better communicator, a better at anything you're trying to do in life. You get what I'm saying? Information is very important. And I think that this is really what this week is about. This week is about input and output. You know what I'm saying? So, and I say that because we're starting the week with this new moon in Gemini. Mercury is now in Gemini, right? And we end the week with the moon basically sliding into Virgo, right? Early degrees of Virgo, which, if we follow the moon cycle, which I always recommend, because the moon cycle gives us a very clear indications of when certain things start and where things come to a climax, you know what I'm saying? And each quarter, it's kind of like looking at a full year, right? Whereas like we have a springtime, we have a summertime, we have a fall time, and we have a winter time, right? And each of these represents different phases in a life cycle, right? So moon cycles are many life cycles of our thoughts and feelings. So the life cycle starts in the new moon, right? Which is what we're going to be experiencing. And the quarter is going to be at the end of the week. So that's going to mark where the summer starts. Now, the summer is where, again, all the life is, where things get vibrant and we're supposed to engage fully on our ideas, right? And then we hit the fall. That's when we start to reap the benefits. So this is right after the new moon. I mean, right after the full moon, like when we hit the fall point. That's when we hit the peak. It's the full moon, and then the fall is like right after that, right? And that's when we're reaping everything that we sowed, and we're regrouping. And then finally the winter is where we completely put to rest all the things that we started from the beginning of the moon cycle, and we prepare for the next moon cycle. So right now, technically, we are coming off of the winter, and it's about to be spring on the day on moon day, right? Monday. But back to what I was saying. So this week ahead, input, output, right? Input is Mercury, Gemini energy, new moon. Okay, boom. And what you want to do is you want to use this week to put as much input as possible, so that at the end of this week, so next Sunday, the moon at night, later in the evening, the moon will slide into Virgo. And then that will be where we can now do what the night side of Mercury does, right? Virgo is mutable earth. So everything that we communicated, we now get the feedback, and we can now analyze these things, organize these things, and practicalize these things, make sense out of the feedback and the data that we got, right? But see, here's another thing about data. Going back to my example as a content creator, right? The more posts you put out, the more data you can actually break down. That's why they tell you, you want to put as much content out as possible. But the thing is, you don't want to just be putting content out for no reason. And this is the part that people don't really tell you. Now, I want to take a minute to kind of give a disclaimer. When I'm speaking about these things, this is not a video necessarily teaching y'all how to be content creators. I'm using this as an example. So, because there is slight things you want to consider that will, that kind of apply, like the context, I'm saying the context for this is a little bit different. And what I mean by that is, you still want to put out quality product, what I'm saying? But for the sake of just what I'm speaking of, my whole point is, the more you put in, the more you get out, right? And you want to put in a lot so that you can actually be able to analyze and break down a lot on the return. You know what I'm saying? So think of this week as your opportunity to kind of go to dive in, right? And especially it being Gemini season, right? Not take anything too personal. Come up with hopefully during Taurus season, you've decided what it is that you value, and now you know where to invest your energy into. So all of that slowness and all that calculation, it led you up to now understand where you can point your energy at, where you should be investing your energy at. Now it's time to, let's put as much investment, right? And when I say investment, it could be money, but I really mean time, attention, and energy. Put as much energy in the things that you value, that you've, again, gone through the whole 30 days of Taurus to decide, hey, this is worth investing in when it comes to your own personal life and what you're trying to achieve. Go hard in that and put as much work or input you can into that. And guess what's going to happen? When we hit the moon in Virgo at the end of this week, right? Next Sunday, boom, you'll be able to take all that information and make sense out of it. Now you really build it. Now you got something to work with. Now you got something to build with. And that's going to take us also into the second decan of Gemini, which is Libra, right? So Libra is, and by decan, I just mean each 10 degrees of a sign, right? Each sign has 3 phases. And each time we hit a different phase of that sign, it's almost like that sign aging, right? Or I don't want to say aging because it makes it seem like, oh, one is better than the other one. These are just 3 different perspectives that a sign goes through as it goes through the cycle, right? So the first 10 degrees of Gemini is emphasized by Gemini. It's just a super Gemini. This is where you get your very early stage Geminis that are very curious, right? They're ruled by Mercury, so they're very fast as far as mentally, a lot of wit, right? When Gemini hits the 20 to from the 10 to 20 degrees, this is where you get the Gemini that's a little bit more sophisticated, a little bit more maybe one-on-one, a little bit more, it's ruled by Libra. So this is the or it's influence, or it's emphasized. It has a Libra or Venus Venusian emphasis. So this is the Gemini that's a little bit more, sophisticated, a little bit more into maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say calculated, but I guess that might be the word, a little bit more selective about its words, a little bit more poetic, maybe a little bit more aware of what it likes, and maybe wants to more so explore those things. And then last, you got the Gemini that is influenced or emphasized. It has an emphasis when it comes to Aquarius energy. So that's a little bit more of a even more sophisticated Gemini. This is a Gemini that has a little bit more of a strong perspective on one thing, knows how to fixate a little bit better than the other ones, right? And it also has, just like the Geminis that like to debate, the Geminis that like to a lot more just organized in general, a bit more sensitive as well. Saying starting to get closer to Cancer and things like that, right? Even though early Geminis, they might be closer to Taurus, coming off of Taurus energy, so they might still be a little bit calculated and things like that, but the curiosity is still there, right? But the second deacon of Gemini kind of being influenced by that Libra type energy or that Venus, again, sticking to what we like. So by the end of this week, it's like looking at it like, okay, let me see how I can talk more, communicate more, engage more with the things that I like. Or let me see, from putting all that input in, let me take what I like from that and let me incorporate that into either my language, how I want to communicate now, or, again, using that to kind of come up with better ways to do what it is we want to, we do. And also relationship. So both relationship to ourselves, right? How we speak to ourselves, but also our relationship to different people, places, and things outside of us. So knowing how to engage with those things, knowing but again, just being more relationship conscious, whether that's you building relationships in your own life or you understanding how things relate to one another. Because that's kind of the main thing. It's like, it's way more so about how things relate to one another, because it's springtime. So we're figuring out who should we team with, in a sense, right? But again, that's the end of the week. This week is meant to basically come up to that conclusion, which is that kind of hammers home my point of why input is the key right now. By input, I just mean we need to engage. We need to get out in the world. We need to see what it is that, hey, do my ideas actually make sense, or am I trying to cling on to to my own? Because see, sometimes we want to be locked away in our own delusion because we could be right in our own delusion. We can be right. We could be so right, and sometimes being right makes us feel comfortable. It makes us feel like, oh yeah, like if I'm right, then it's kind of like that false sense of a comfort zone. Being right satisfies our ego and things like that. And it takes a lot of vulnerability to open yourself up to be possibly wrong. And being wrong, again, there is no real right or wrong. So when you get hit with new information, being willing to change is one of the most powerful things you can do. Being willing to adjust. Some people avoid that though, because again, it feels more good on the surface and in the short term to be right. But in the long term, being wrong, again, learning from those wrongs, that's how real growth happens. You get what I'm saying? So, be willing to, just say what it is that's on your mind. And, and there's a difference, of course, to saying what's on your mind with a clear intentions. And that's kind of what we have to be mindful of. Like I said before, the new moon in Gemini, we need to set those intentions, right? We need to be clear on what it is we actually talking about, what we're communicating about, what we're thinking about, what our mind needs to orbit around. Because see, with Gemini, it might not be one thing on your mind. It's bound to be a million things on your mind. But what you want to do is create an orbit around one central concept or an idea, right? One central goal, one thing that you're actually trying to manifest. And that kind of is the concept of mutable air, and it also being like deriving from the third house of surroundings, right? You want to take a central idea and develop a surrounding around it, which is multiple different perspectives on how to approach that idea that you can now use as kind of foot soldiers to communicate, engage with the world, and then bring that information back, right? And as we go throughout the week, boom, at the end of it, moon going into Virgo. And then again, the moon in Virgo signifies the first quarter square, which is, like I always say, that's where we take all the things that we learned from the spring and we now can convert it into a clear on eureka breakthrough moment. Oh, I got it. And that becomes the idea that we now cling on to basically go full force in for the springtime, right? And we live in that idea and we marry that idea until we reach the end of the new moon portion, or we hit the full moon, basically, because it's not the end, it's really just the halfway point, but it's the full climax of what we're putting into, because the new moon, best way to explain it is we're filling the moon up like a cup. So every thought and feeling that we are kind of grappling with during the new moon to the full moon counts. These are very important. And then from the full moon to the next new moon, we need to just make sure we don't spill that cup, or we need, think about like how you would handle a full cup. It's like we're drinking from the cup. That's the nourishment. So all the feelings and thoughts that we put into the new moon leading up until it being full, we want to make sure we put good thoughts and feelings into that so that we have good nourishment. And then we also want to protect that. So we don't want to be moving too fast, doing too much, sharing too much with people who didn't either contribute, or people who don't got enough for their own, right? Don't be just trying to use your cup to quench everybody's thirst. You know what I'm saying? Some people be around you just because you got a full cup. So you got to be mindful and discerning about that. You got to protect what it is that you've grown as a harvest. You know what I'm saying? So, it's a lot of things. Stuff is a lot deeper than people really think. And the thing is it's deeper than you think, but then again, it's not even that deep, really. I say it's deeper than you think, but it's very simple. That's what I'll say. It's simple as a concept, because these are things, we use metaphors just to explain how these things relate to what we do every day. Right. But, so let's get into some of the moons. So the travel from the moon being in the new moon in Gemini to the new moon, to the first quarter square moon in Virgo at the end of the week. Like I said before, Monday we're getting hit with the full moon. All over the place with the words, Gemini. We're getting hit with the new moon, right? So we're starting things off, kicking things off. And then we're getting the next moon after the moon in Gemini would be the moon in Cancer. So that will hit around Wednesday, I believe. Right now, let's talk real quick. When the moon gets into Cancer, that's where the moon loves to be. So around Wednesday, the moon is going to be where it loves to be. We're going to have these fresh ideas that we're trying to basically kick off from nowhere, right? These new ideas that we get hit with during the new moon. Now we're stuck with a moon in Cancer. Now the moon in Cancer, for the most part, is about it's cardinal water. So a lot of ways I see this as developing a sense of care and connection to the new ideas and goals that we have. So with the changes that you've been already implementing, right? Because we're not too far away from that Uranus conjunction, right? Probably still feeling it a little bit. And we're dealing with another huge shift with Saturn now in Aries. So Saturn in Aries is giving us kind of that extra gusto, that authoritative feeling like, hey, no one's coming to save me. The sword is literally in my hands, and I have to now utilize this tool to get me where I want to go. Right. And we're still dreaming about these things. We're Saturn is right on top of Neptune. So it's almost like your dream is really in your hands, but it's in the form of a sword or a tool like a hammer. And it's kind of like the universe is like, so what are you going to do? For the next 3 months, we're going to be dealing with a Saturn Neptune conjunction in the early degrees of Aries. And mind you, Chiron is at the end of Aries, right? And that's significant because Chiron we've been dealing with the mistakes of what happens in Aries season. So if you think of Aries energies, the start of things, being selfish, being all the qualities of Aries, right? So selfishness, being in isolation, being alone, being the first one to do something, right? Doing something brand new, um, uh, trying to be a leader. These are things that we've been dealing with. We've been closely analyzing our mistakes when it comes to these types of qualities and these energies. So now that, like, Chiron is not done with Aries, but it's had a long life in Aries. I feel like Chiron's been in Aries for a good minute, for a few years. And then now here we are at the very top of this with Neptune and Saturn, two planets that kind of like, Neptune is like the grandmother, Saturn is like the grandfather, right? So this is like a very it's kind of like it's a crazy connection, you know what I'm saying, with those who grandparents, you know what I'm saying, close to their grandparents or got to know their grandparents. And if their grandparents, if you ever seen grandparents kind of engage with each other, you know what I'm saying, it's almost like, they love each other, but they hate each other at the same time because of how much time they spent with each other, right? So it's kind of like that vibe a little bit. And you know, Saturn wants to do things its way. Neptune has intuition and has a little bit, has the wisdom kind of to understand this in a different way than the Saturn energy might try to approach these things. So there's a conversation going on between what we're trying to build and, our approach. So it's kind of like on in one way, on a high octave, very creative time to really get to work. Very creative time to get to work. And like all of that Neptune, all that Saturn and Pisces energy leading up into now, you've had your time to dream about what it is you've wanted to do. I hate to say it like this, but you had enough time to sleep on your dreams. I'll say it. You had enough time to sleep it over. It's now time to act. And you just don't want to be slow to act. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to wait on this. You don't want to wait on this energy, and maybe you do. Maybe you're scared to do it still. If you're scared to do it still, there were things in Saturn and Pisces that you probably didn't learn, and you will learn in 3 months when this energy goes retrograde. You know what I'm saying? When Saturn goes back retrograde into Pisces, you'll probably learn those lessons that still got you kind of in a chokehold right now. You know what I'm saying? Because right now, there's nothing to be scared about. And you should already pretty much have come to that conclusion already, that it's really nothing to be scared of. And even if you are scared, no one's coming to save you. So it makes no sense to kind of play it small. You know what I'm saying? It makes no sense to neglect the present. The present is a gift for a reason. And when you neglect those things, you're going to feel this. You're going to feel like, you're going to feel it when you neglect the present. That's where regret really stems from, is when we really didn't take full advantage of the present, or we spent the present focused on the wrong things. So, it kind of goes back to understanding value as well, because I think Venus is still in Aries. So it's like, if this means something to you, right? And again, I'm speaking for the people who have been, maybe you've changed your mind a few times, but you got a sense of where you want to go in the direction you're going in life already, right? You got a sense of where you want to go. So you've been taking some steps, right? You're not perfect. So there's been some hiccups. There's been some good wins, but there's also been a fuck ton of L's. Okay, now what? Right? Okay, you made it this far unscathed, or maybe you took a bunch of bumps and bruises, but it's like, now what? It keeps going. It goes on, and you got to muster up that strength, and you got to, if it means something to you, then you got to pursue it. If it doesn't mean anything to you, this is where you decide to pivot, and nothing wrong with pivoting, right? But that's kind of up to you whether or not you need to pivot, or if this is a complete, because for some people this is a complete rebuilding. I need to tear it all down. It's nothing like what I wanted. I realize that's not what I want, and that's okay too. Again, like I said, I'm very aware that there's many different people watching. I mean, it's in a way it's impossible to reach everybody and get everybody's story completely right. So I try to give as many alternate timelines as possible. But for whatever it's worth, your timeline, right? You gotta understand, for everybody though, collectively, it's Aries is a hands-on energy. It's back at square one. But you either at square one with the courage from the previous cycle, or you're back at square one and you're denying yourself of access to that courage, and you're still playing it small. But right now it's not, I wouldn't advise anyone playing it small, even if you feel like what you have to offer to the world is not significant. You know what I'm saying? Even, because again, changing the world is deeper than just trying to be a celebrity or being known for something. Changing the world is really more about, because even on that scale, you ain't shit if you not actually being a real person in your actual life and affecting people in your radius. So it's way more about how you engage with your everyday people that you see. You know what I'm saying? I know y'all seen that dumbass commercial with fucking Cher and Future singing that shit, bro. That should be killing me, man. And everyday people. I'm sorry. That shit just went across my mind when I said that, though. This shit's so dumb, man. Where has the world gone, bro? Where has the world gone, man? I swear. It's just so awkward. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, that I kind of like that about where the world's going. Well, that's a weird statement to say, like, oh, I like that about where the world's going. But I do, in a sense, because I do feel like, we all just people out here just doing stuff, man. Like, brands are doing stuff. And what I mean by doing stuff, I mean, like, I feel like early on, and it felt like earlier in life, or especially when I was coming up, it was so stiff. You were this, that's all you're ever going to be, and nothing more, nothing less. But the internet made things so fluid to the point where you don't know what is going to pop up on the timeline tomorrow. You don't know what's going to pop up on your feed tomorrow. Like, it could be anything. But that is also, to some people get grumpy about it. Some people are afraid of it. But I say I'm a little more optimistic about it, because I think that even for y'all watching who might have goals and dreams and ideas that are vastly different than the status quo, doesn't that should reassure you that there is a space for you to occupy, and that if you feel compelled to do that thing that's on the back of your mind, go for it and don't look back. You know what I'm saying? Go for it. And I think that that's a big thing too with Saturn and Aries, is there comes a time in everyone's life where it's a point of no return. You have to go for it, and when you go for it, you can't. It's no looking back. It's no, you know what I'm saying? You have to just go where that's going to take you. And again, Saturn and Aries is so important for you to have courage. But on the other end too, because I've been speaking about the high octave of that conjunction. The low octave is, again, a lot of delusion. So you have to know, and the knowing comes from the previous experience. That's why I always say astrology is progression. That's the biggest thing about astrology, and not just astrology. I'm mad I even said that. It's really about life. Life is progression. You started at one point and you're living life in the present. You know what I'm saying? You're in the present, but if there's anything you're going to use the past for, just use the past for reference and context, right? Use your idea of the future to kind of motivate you to go somewhere, right? Even if you don't know where to go, at least still you got inspiration to do something, right? But the present is really what matters the most, because that's where all the magic is actually happening. Because the decisions we make in the interim are the ones that affect and actually lead the way, right? But back to what I was saying. So yeah, the low octave of this conjunction is just, again, I think the delusion of identity that's not actually rooted in truth. That's kind of what I see the low octave of the Saturn Neptune conjunction. It's like whenever you are taking on an identity that is not rooted in truth, your truth, right? You're taking an identity that's already been, hey, it's what they say, been there, done that, right? It's now more than ever, you have to be a one of a kind individual, right? And I think that the experiences within, throughout the next 3 months, for those who are ready, you're going to be tested and stretched in those ways. Those who are not ready yet, you might not even take the jump, or you'll take the jump but be still half-assed with it, and you might fall for certain delusions, but it's all for the purpose of kind of repurposing you. It's all for the purpose of kind of leading you back to yourself, right? And that's kind of what I've been saying, even like when I was speaking on the in the very beginning of the year. This is one of those years where the adults, the mature adult spirits are gonna get their marching orders, and it's up to you to just kind of go and do that. And those who are not quite as mature as spirits, y'all gonna go through maybe another kind of different things that can happen. One of them is you're gonna go through the little loop, but you're gonna find your way through and get your orders on what to do next. But then some, probably a large majority, are gonna trick themselves into another karmic cycle for the next however many years Saturn is about to be in Aries, right? And that karmic cycle will be kind of less autonomy, right? Having to kind of follow somebody else's orders, having to sit back while it seems like everybody else gets to do what they want, and people going through their Saturn return. I don't, I'm not no fear monger or anything like that. Like, people who are going through their Saturn return, is really going to be a matter of, did you position yourself up to be a leader? And even if you didn't, are you willing to kind of step out on your own and decide who you're going to be? And also, there's wisdom in learning from another mentor, but they've got to be aligned. And even in that alignment, still identity and knowing who you are plays an entire humongous role. You have to also know where your boundaries lie, and those, you got to be willing to kind of fight for that too. I'm going to talk more about that in a separate video, but yeah. So the moon and this week. So we're starting off with that new moon. Like I said before, these new fresh ideas. It's time to pursue those things. Mercury going to be in Gemini, meeting up with the sun. So boom, okay, your clarity is there, right? So hopefully that's what you experiencing during the new moon is new clarity on where it is you trying to go and take these things, and the opportunity kind of sparking off from what's going on in Aries. So boom, you got the clarity, right? Now, when you get that clarity, the next thing is going to be, do you allow your insecurities to take you off course, or do you develop a new comfort zone around this new clarity? You got the picture, you got the thought and the idea, but are you gonna allow yourself to develop comfortability around there using that moon in Cancer, or are your insecurities going to drown that out? And that's going to set you on that high octave or low octave path. Let's say you take the low octave path, right? The next moon up is going to be Leo. Now, when Leo hits center stage, if you hit the low octave, you're going to be grasping for things to make you feel validated, or you're going to be missing out on opportunities to express yourself, right? To speak your mind, to speak up. Very important during the moon, and when the moon goes into a little piece of lint floated across. Very important when the moon gets into Leo, especially during the Gemini season. Again, like I said, input for the output, and Leo's going to need you to speak up, but you're not going to feel willing to speak up. And even if you have a bad day that day, you still got to find it within yourself to speak up, so that you can kind of do what that sextile is doing, or needs you to do, right? I won't say needs you to do, because to be honest, these transits are not people. They don't need anything from you. They're just presented there for you to take as an energy or not, and you're the decider of whether or not you want to take that portal, take that door or not. So, don't put the responsibility on these energies to magically make you feel like doing something or magically make something work for you. That's one of the biggest misconceptions of pop culture astrology that I've been, fighting as a concept since I've been doing this. But it's like understanding these energies are there for you to tap into. So it might not feel comfortable for you to speak up when the moon slides into the Leo, but I'm telling you, speak up, but make sure you speaking up from a place of truth, integrity. Again, low octave. Let's say you took the low octave route, new moon in Gemini came, you got the new clarity, but you allowed your insecurities to take over. So now you're speaking up for the wrong things. You're speaking up to be seen and validated, right? Because you're chasing validation instead of the higher octave, which is you got this new clarity. This allowed you to develop a new sense of comfortability, even when you feel uncomfortable, because hey, this is where I'm going. I have to feel, I have to initiate a new way to feel and be comfortable in this maybe uncomfortable space. That'll lead to the high octave of Leo, which is now I have the integrity behind what it is I'm saying. So the integrity behind what I'm saying makes what I'm saying, even if people disagree, they feel me and they see where I'm going with things. And what, it might not be true to everybody, but it's my truth, right? And my truth, I'm still open for the feedback. So I'm going to speak my mind. I'm going to speak it confidently. I don't care who sees or doesn't see. I'm doing this because this is me. And that's the high octave. And then boom, when you hit Virgo, the information you get is going to teach you whether or not you've been on the right path with things. And if you have been, okay, let me take that in. Let me analyze it, break it down, make it make sense. Now I have a whole new approach to what it is my goals are. I have a whole new way of getting to my point B than I did previously, a better calculated way. And so this is where the Gemini energy is activated. Now, like I said, going into the second decan of Gemini, I know how to build good relationships based upon who I've been talking to. I know how to be discerning about who I'm relating to and what ideas I'm choosing to share, right? Because that's another aspect of the second decan of Gemini is being discerning, knowing what relationships are worth engaging with and building on versus what people, every time I share an idea with them, they're either looking to take an idea from me with nothing to contribute, or they're not adding nothing to the conversation. So I might not need to relate to them as much. I might need to create more balance behind what I'm doing, and even balance even in my own mental. I can rebalance things so I'm not doing too much of something that's not going to get me a bag, or doing something that's not going to actually pan out for me in a positive way. I can adjust myself in that manner, in that magnitude, right? And then, but that's the high octave. The low octave is, you're not doing things out of integrity when you communicate. So what happens now when the moon slides into Virgo? The information, the criticism you get back is going to make you feel stupid. It's going to make you feel mentally inadequate. It's going to make you feel a certain way about what you've been spending your mind on. You're going to realize, damn, I've been scattered. I've been all over the place and I've built nothing. And so that's going to be a choice. Once again, do you choose to fix it, or do you keep on going down the same path? If you fix it, cool. You got a whole nother week to put in as much work as you can. That's going to, based upon what you learned, that can help you get back on track and get a nice feeling, nice new full moon experience, right? Full moon in Sagittarius, which I wish I would have mentioned in the beginning of the video, but I'll get to it in a second, what that represents. You'll be able to tap in and boom, you got it, right? Matter of fact, I'm gonna say that for the new moon video. Well, I might touch on it anyway. That's the low octave. Low octave is, damn, you know what I'm saying? Now the information you get back makes it more so is, that you get the two choices. Either you're going to choose to fix it, or you're going to choose to ignore that. Some people, they don't take the hint. And so what's going to happen after that? And you might see this in people around you. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of times why I speak about the high and low octave, so that you can kind of get a context of, oh, this person around me ain't really even doing it. I see the difference, so that you can more so be the example. And, you know, I'm not advising anybody to save nobody. Cause again, some people gonna do what they're gonna do. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you gotta let people rock. You know, you don't want to get blood on your hands, but for the most part, you can be the example, and hopefully they see what you're doing and decide to do better for themselves. But the you know, the extra low octave, a person who ignores that information that comes with Virgo, they're going to allow that criticism to make them maybe not want to talk, maybe not want to speak up, maybe want to be more scattered. They might lean more towards doing things that are destructive and not very good for themselves. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's just kind of what you might experience, or what certain people might decide to do with their time. And so that's going to be a person who kind of, maybe they start to flip things and become critical, hypercritical of everyone around them, right? Instead of looking at themselves and their own problems, or they try to use other people's problems as a scapegoat to get them out of doing things that's going to help them build their own life. You know, it's a lot of different ways that could play out, but you know, I don't recommend that for anyone, especially not right now. Some of the planets that the moon is going to slide by. So being that the new moon in Gemini, that's going to be on Monday, right? When the moon, so I think probably later in the day, Monday or Tuesday, probably Tuesday, right? I think Tuesday, the moon is going to be passing by Jupiter. So the expansion of these ideas, right? The expansion of these ideas and how we feel about them, leading into Cancer. So it's so important for like Wednesday for you to really pay attention to how you feel about the ideas on your mind, and try your best to distinguish what's an insecurity and what's something I need to develop more comfortability around. You know, try your best not to allow insecurities to get in the way of you and everything you've been trying to build and work towards, because it's going to be very tricky. You know what I'm saying? Because anytime we're dealing with a water transit, sometimes our feelings become overwhelming. But if you do this properly, then this could be a perfect storm for you going into the next energy. Like I said, the moon in Leo. Let me see. The moon, while it's in Cancer, it's going to be squaring off with Saturn and Neptune a little bit, but it's still on that cusp. So you might be dealing with a little bit of a trine, but a square situation, you know, where there's a gift in the uncomfortable feelings that you have to get over and smooth into. Let me see. When the moon gets into Leo, that's going to be a powerful time. Just a lot of trines and sextiles for the most part. And then, Virgo. And that's going to be, again, another learning lesson, and a bit of an inconjunction, because the thing about at the end of the week, when the moon slides in Virgo, the thing about it is it's not going to necessarily be clear on like what you the data that you got back, the feedback that you're actually breaking down and analyzing. It might not be very clear where that matches or relates to the Saturn and Neptune conjunction. Like it might not, it's an inconjunction in relation to that. So this is more so about like what you practically can do, like what you can do in reality. All of that Saturn shit is still dealing with you trying to build something that's coming straight from your imagination. That's still something that you are. And that's kind of like, if you look at the state of the world, nobody really knows what to do. It's a whole lot. It's just an open space for you to really get in and create something, man. Like create something that didn't exist before. And you'll be surprised how much access and freedom you really have right now, even if it doesn't feel that way. And our finances and the practical things in our life might make it feel like, what can I actually build? You know, don't let that distract you though. Don't let that kind of restrict you. Right now, the only restriction we really have is our capacity to be creative. Our true only restriction we have is our capacity to be creative. Let me see what else. Yeah. Oh yeah. And when the moon gets into, so this is another important thing too. When the moon gets into Leo, it's going to be opposite Pluto retrograde. So, we're grappling still opposite Pluto retrograde, but trining Mars. So still we're grappling with the transformations we know we are either in the midst of making, or that we still, hopefully it's nothing we still gotta wait to make for. Right now you already should be fully invested into your transformation. If you still clinging on to anything old, it's going to be the reason you don't make it. You know what I'm saying? So you just got to understand it like that. Moon opposite Pluto, though, you just going to feel uncomfortable maybe, but again, right now, this part of the year really just calls for courage. It really calls for courage and just the willingness to put your mind forward and toward change and towards something different. And hopefully that different is better. You know what I'm saying? And it's, it's better when it comes from a place of authenticity, right? And not false authenticity, aka doing things because you think that's how people want you to be, or how you think society wants you to be, doing things because you believe it's right. And hopefully you've been through enough experiences that gave you a sense of right and wrong, and that you're not just borrowing a worldview from what other people been saying. Because if you have been, it's going to be apparent. It's going to show. And I think it's also significant just to point out that we end this week with the moon getting close to about to conjunct the south node. So a lot of things come to a nice resolve, you know what I'm saying, or should. Maybe behaviors, maybe attitudes and things like that, perspectives on certain things. Hopefully those things come to a resolve for you to now kind of extract what's valuable from those old ways and completely leave behind the things that are no longer valuable. All right. So hopefully this is helpful. I'm going to be dropping sign specific weekly readings for all the signs. That's going to be in a membership. So if you are looking for that kind of content, make sure you subscribe and go ahead and join the membership. Become a Beyonder. You know what I'm saying? We're doing big stuff. Going to be dropping sign specific, all signs, very sign specific videos for that, as well as some other goodies and things like that. What else? Also today, 5/25/25 is the 2-year anniversary for Gotta Start Somewhere. So wherever you are, make sure you stream that. And I appreciate everyone who's been showing love to that album. One of my personal favorites, you know what I'm saying? All my albums are my babies, but that, you know what I'm saying, that's the one that seems like it's going to college, it's college bound, you know what I'm saying? It got its grades right, you know what I'm saying? Very proud of that project, and shout out to everyone who was a feature on that. Again, love and appreciation to all y'all. Thank y'all for rocking with me. Make sure you share. Make sure if you haven't liked, if you made it this far, last thing I ask for you is just hit that like button and share with somebody you think would be interested in this type of content. I appreciate all y'all. Much love, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.